So, are you ready to talk about your favorite designer ever?
Yes, I am.
I'm so happy we're doing this switcheroo.
Yes, this is a switcheroo episode. Do you want to do the beginning introduction? Since
Welcome to Sillage and Sorcery, a podcast for witches who are perfumers to talk about the intersectionality and alchemy of witchcraft and perfumery. That was right off the dome. Pretty proud of myself.
that was great.
I'm Melissa Siff, your daughter of Siff Sniffs, and I am joined by my lovely co-host,
B. Sampson of Venus Invictus.
and this week, because it is a switcheroo episode, I'm going to talk about the ingredient of the week, which is jasmine, not the Aladdin character.
Yes! Not the Aladdin character.
That,
the flower.
that came up so much. The flower. All right. So, one of the things that I think was so interesting when I was researching jasmine for this episode is that everyone was saying how foundational both jasmine and rose are to perfumery. One source even claimed that most fragrances use some jasmine in it. And I was like, I think that is probably incorrect, but we'll get into why I think that might not be as incorrect depending on how you want to look at it. So let's get into this tiny star-shaped white flower with its powerful, sensual, and intoxicating scent. There are over 400 different types of jasmine that exist in nature. The two main ones that are used in perfumery are Jasminium grandiflorum, or the big flower jasmine, which is sometimes called the Grasse jasmine because it grows in Grasse, France. This type does grow abundantly all over Grasse, France, and is used in Chanel No. 5, Maison Francis Kurkdjian, and other fragrances. In Chanel No. 5 specifically, one of their reasons for their use of Grasse jasmine is that it uses the process of enfleurage, a method of squeezing the flower in layers of fat to produce an absolute, which is highly concentrated. However, enfleurage takes a ton of raw jasmine. Some estimates have 8,000 blooms to produce 1 milliliter of absolute, making jasmine absolute one of the most expensive ingredients in modern perfumery, which is also why high-end fragrances are often prohibitively expensive. One source I did read said that the enfleurage method was not used anymore, and that they use solvent extraction primarily. But what I will say is that when I was doing the research for the Chanel No. 5 episode, the enfleurage method was actually a big part of during World War II. They were like taking jasmine in the fat layers and then shipping it over to Hoboken, New Jersey. So they were definitely using enfleurage all the way up until like the 40s and 50s, but they may not necessarily be using it now.
I think that's fascinating.
Grasse jasmine grown in Grasse is often hard for people to procure because many of the fields are owned by the Mull family, who exclusively distribute to Chanel.
Wow. Honestly, you see that quite often with a lot of different fragrance houses. They have their own like exclusivity deals with certain farms.
One of my sources that I was reading for this episode was a book by Jean-Claude Elena, who was the lead perfumer at Hermes for years, and he is definitely his own iconic nose. He's also the first source that ever got me into perfumery and like reading about the method. So one of Jean-Claude Elena's books has like a whole list of ingredients that he has on his organ. And that's kind of like where I started. I was like, all right, well, which
That's
ones
very
of these can I like procure easily? So I love Jean-Claude Elena. He grew up in Grasse, and his grandmother was a harvester in Grasse's jasmine fields, and he played in the
Wow.
fields while his mom looked after him. So he associates jasmine with like his youth. In all of his writing that I've read, it always has like crazy backstory and then like a paragraph of what you really need. So I've just found that kind of interesting, of this whole like jasmine and growing up in the fields. Jasmine also has to be harvested early in the morning because once it gets past noon, the intensity of the sunlight can damage the blooms and it will not be useful in perfumery. Grasse jasmine is also grown in Italy and Egypt, although several brands do note a difference since Grasse is at a higher latitude than Egypt or Italy, so they think that it makes the scent smell a lot different.
Hmm.
What I will say is we are going to get into slight racism. So I think that also might be a factor as well.
Okay.
So Jasminium sambac, which is
Mhm.
also known as Tuscan or Arabian jasmine, but once again, depends on who's talking, okay, and who wants to lay claim to it,
Right.
is the other type of jasmine that is used in perfumery. However, it originated in India and China. So we're calling it Tuscan or Arabian jasmine, and it comes from neither of those places. It also shares a family with olives, which I thought was so interesting.
What? I had no clue.
Yeah, right? And I was like, that's weird. But then if you think like an olive blossom looks similar to jasmine, so I wouldn't see it too, like, it's one of those ones where like, you kind of get it, but interesting. So Jasmine Minium Sambac has a long history throughout religious and cultural festivals in India. Not only was it used in floats for religious festivals, it was also used as offering to deities and a bunch of health purposes, including in women's hair for hair growth. It was served in food as an aphrodisiac. Because it was connected to being an aphrodisiac, it was often used in wedding ceremonies.
Mm.
And the idea of like walking down the aisle with a big ass bouquet of jasmine just sounds divine.
Yeah, that
That
does.
just sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Ayurvedic practices state that jasmine can be used for headaches and for any kind of light sedation that someone may need. Depending on where it grows and what type of version of jasmine it is, the scent can vary slightly, because everybody really wants to have an opinion about.
Yeah.
Still, all jasmine contains indole, benzyl acetate, linalool, cisjasmonic is how I'm going to pronounce that one. Benzyl alcohol, benzyl salicylic, benzyl sala. This part of your job is so hard.
Benzyl
Pull that
salicylate.
up. There you go. Cis-3-hexanol, eugeniol, and methyl anthralate. Yeah, I'm going to just go with anthralate. You could tell
Basically,
I just
anthralate,
know how to read it and what it smells like. If we're considering these as being in almost every fragrance, then sure. Like we've talked about on the podcast before, that linalool alone is in damn near everything that you put on your body.
Right.
So if we're looking at these components as being in most fragrances, I would say that for sure. Grass jasmine is known for its green leaning scent, so it's a little bit more herbaceous, a little bit more grass-like, whereas jasmine from India is seen as leaning closer to orange blossom. Egyptian jasmine is seen as deeper and more sensual, and it has a higher concentration of paracresol. Once again, that's how I'm going to pronounce that. However, the component of jasmine that became ubiquitous in perfumery is hedione, or methyl dihydrojasmonate. And this is what most perfumers are familiar with when it comes to using jasmine in fragrance. The name hedione, because I had to do this part just to honor you, B, comes from the Greek for goddess for pleasure and enjoyment. She was a goddess born from Eros, the god of love, and Psyche, the goddess of the soul. And fun fact, at my wedding, because it's not our wedding, Chris, my husband, and I invoked Eros and Psyche because we felt that their love story was similar to our own.
I love that.
On one of our anniversaries, Chris did get me a Psyche necklace because she was the one that we invoked to represent me at our wedding.
That's very sweet.
Yeah. Hedione was patented in 1962 by Firmenich, who is sometimes the villain on our podcast. And they named it Hedione to honor the goddess of pleasure. It was first used in Christian Dior's Eau Sauvage, which we've also covered on the podcast before.
Mhm.
It continues to be used in popular fragrances from J'adore by Dior to Imperial Tea by Kilian to First by Van Cleef and Arpels. But it doesn't just end there. More recently, outside of jasmine-infused rice, which has been a staple in Indian cooking, jasmine has been finding its way into modern cuisine. French bakers have been infusing jasmine into macarons, and Nespresso also has coffee infused with jasmine. So now you don't have to just smell it, you can also ingest the aphrodisiac.
Yes, I do love me some jasmine tea.
And that's what I have on jasmine. So now we're going to throw it over to you, B. to talk about the fragrance of the week.
Yes. I'm not going to talk about the fragrance just yet.
I mean, I really do, so that's fair.
We're going to start with the story about a person called Manfred Thierry Mugler. Mugler, as I will just call him now, was born in Strasbourg, France on December 21st, 1948, making him a Sag. Love that for him. He was born to the son of a senior physician at the Vittel Spa and a mother who was, in his words, an artist, comedian, tragedienne, diva, and superstar. A flamboyant 5'9" redhead with the shoulders of a swimmer, his first muse and source of inspiration. Blair grew up in both a large houseman-style apartment in Strasbourg and a middle-class house in Vittel. Mugler described his childhood as being spent in the Middle Ages of Strasbourg and in the 1900s in Vittel. Mugler had a very authoritarian, old-style German upbringing in a family that wasn't very affectionate, as you can imagine, a German upbringing. He was in an interview, and this is a quote from an interview that he did, talking about having a recollection of his childhood. "I was very unhappy and I would run away. I was incapable of following the rules," which I think that
Also
a lot
sounds
of
like a
us...
Sagittarius.
Yes. But I think like a lot of, well, I guess maybe for fire signs, I feel like fire signs can really relate to like not following rules. Anyways, so he was also quoted in an interview talking about his early childhood as saying, "I always had a project on the go. I was always creating a new play or costumes for characters, drawing and writing songs. I was no ordinary child, and people often avoided me. It was truly psychotic. I often had the feeling I was crazy. My parents constantly threatened to send me to reformatory, and there was a mental health hospital on the way to school that I made sure to never go anywhere near for fear that they would lock me up," which I think is just like, that's amazing.
The line between genius and insanity.
Right, exactly. At the age of 9, he was enrolled in evening classes in classical dance. And by the age of 14, he had his first professional contract with the Ballet de l'Opéra.
So what you're saying is that he was doing better than Francis Kirkjian. Because
Oh,
Francis Kirkjian got kicked out at 14.
he did get kicked out at 14.
So he's doing better on the
So
dance front. Okay,
yes,
got
he
you.
got his first contract with this like national ballet opera place. And he was classed as a character dancer, so he would often play villains, pirates, and clowns and mimes. He never got the prince roles because he was just too tall. But he did tour Europe and danced in Swan Lake for nearly 6 years. At the age of 18, he returned to Strasbourg to study design, and he did that for a little bit. I should note this about his time at interior design. He credits dance and like his time with like dance and interior design as teaching him everything about presence, structure, how a garment should move. As he put it, dance and fashion have a lot in common. Fashion is a production, and the runway gives you the opportunity to put on a real show. So in 1967, seeking more creativity, he moves to Paris and embarks on 2 life-changing trips. First, he explored the United States and Mexico, visiting iconic locations from Andy Warhol's films, like the Tropicana Motel and the Chateau Marmont, a hotel where he would later live for nearly 30 years, which is crazy.
That is
By
crazy.
1973, at the age of 25, he launched his first personal fashion collection, Café de Paris. And then from there, I mean, you can go back and look up like Mugler fashion shows from the 80s and 90s. They were so iconic. He really very quickly revolutionized fashion with his powerful silhouettes, often featuring broad padded shoulder pads, nipped in waists to create it like a hyper feminine, almost superhuman form. His fashion shows were not mere presentations, but theatrical spectacles. They've been called the Woodstock of fashion. He was a pioneer in diversity as well, casting drag queens, porn stars, transgender women on runways long before it was industry practice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, obsessed with Mugler. So, and here's when we start to get into perfumery. In 1992, to expand his artistic vision beyond fashion, viewing fragrance as a powerful medium for emotion and memory, in partnership with the Clarins Group, he launches Angel. Have you smelled Angel before?
Angel had a chokehold on me in like the early part of college.
Yeah.
And I could never afford it. So that was another one that I went into Sephora and went. And then I found out it was really easy for like to dupe. Then I started wearing the dupe.
Angel was very controversial, primarily because it was a shocking departure from every perfume that came before it. Its unconventional, potent character created an immediate love it or hate it divide for several key reasons. First of all, it was the creation of the gourmand category in fragrance. He created that, which is so cool. So he went with an unconventional blend of sweet notes like chocolate, caramel, honey, with an unusually high 30% concentration of patchouli, which was jarring to the contemporary nose. This revolutionary combination created an entirely new fragrance category, paving the way for countless sweet food-inspired scents that have since followed. It was seen as like a potent and heady scent. The fragrance was brazen, loud, and possessed a potent sillage, often described as beast or beast mode in perfume. It was notorious for filling elevators and rooms, an attribute that offended some while addicting others. To this day, it remains infamous in discussions of scents that people want to least smell in confined spaces.
It also, at least from my experience of it, smells completely different on the individual wearing it. And I think that that has to do with the patchouli, not necessarily like the caramel or the chocolate parts.
Exactly, I agree.
But I think because of its high concentration of patchouli, like I know what Angel smells like, and every once in a while I'll see someone, I'll be like, oh my God, you smell amazing. And they'll be like, oh, it's Angel. I'm like, how the hell is that Angel? But it just mixes with people's chemistry in such a way that it smells completely different.
Yeah. I love that he just like, and I didn't include it in my script, but I was reading an article where he talked about how he wanted to create something pulled from his childhood memory of like going to like a carnival or a fair and having like cotton candy and like candy like food from the fair and like incorporating that into a fragrance. So I also love the like idea of pairing memory with scent because that's the shit that we love. But despite Angel's initial controversy, or perhaps because of it, Angel's impact was profound. The shock factor eventually faded, and what was once considered jarring is now widely recognized as a masterpiece of perfumery. Angel not only created the gourmand category, but also cemented its status as a timeless and influential work of art. And
the bottles are iconic too.
Yes, the bottles are so iconic. If you have not seen them, please go look them up, audience.
They are a blue star with like silver accents.
Yes.
And it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
I just want to side note the noses behind the creation of Angel were Oliver Cresp and E. de Charens, part of the Clarins group, I guess, which I believe later ended up buying the Mugler franchise, the name, essentially. So 4 years later, he creates Angel for Men. And in 2001, a Mugler cologne. It was Angel's success that established a powerful template for Mugler perfumery, bold, polarizing, utterly iconic. Rather than replicating the winning formula Angel, Mugler chose to explore its antithesis. But before we get into the fragrance of this episode, mind you, this was 2001 that he created Mugler cologne. And then in 2002, he retires from fashion. Yes, he retired in the early 2000s, which is crazy because Mugler has been around since.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Right. Because in 2019, he did the iconic wet dress for Kim Kardashian. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So he's come out of, he spent some time in like 2014 being a creative director for a brand. So he's come out of retirement, I guess, for certain things, but very like picky and choosy. So retired in 2002, and in 2005, Mugler teams up with Dominique Ropion. I don't know, it's French, I think. And
we're never known for pronouncing things correctly on this podcast. Okay, the bar is so low that we're fine. All right, We're already pronouncing silage in the American way and not the French way, so.
Exactly. So Dominique Rapillon and Laurent Bruyere, which Dominique Rapillon is a huge known person in the fragrance world. He is a master perfumer. He got an acknowledgement in 2019 for like his lifetime achievement of what he's done for the perfume industry. Super iconic. He's worked on everything from like Scents from the Body Shop, Chanel, Dior, you name it, he's probably done it. So in 2005, Alien launches. Where Angel was a sweet but truly heavy gourmand that evoked childhood memories and the earth, Alien was a luminous, solar, and woody fragrance designed to feel utterly otherworldly. Alien was built around a radiant and hypnotic jasmine sambac, often described as luminous and solar. Instead of Angel's gourmand sweetness, Alien offered a sleek, ambery, woody trail, creating a sensation of mystery, and magnetic warmth. It was not a loud shout like Angel, but a powerful, enigmatic whisper, completing Muglaire's olfactory universe with two opposing yet equally formidable pillars. Alien, like Angel, was considered a beast, garnering yet again loved or hated opinions. Some people find it a little too cloying, like it's too florally, like too much of that like heady jasmine scent, and other people like me find it absolutely intoxicating.
But see, I'm such an Angel bitch that like Alien's just not for me, and I'm okay with it. But like, I love Angel and wore it like so often back in the day that like, yeah, no. But I've recommended Alien to customers the time who come in my booth.
Alien broke through the olfactory clutter, if you will, by embracing uniqueness. It was designed to be an emblem of personal power and expression, making women feel more empowered and ethereal. Its distinctive amethyst colored bottle, crafted like a precious stone, further cemented this identity as a luxurious and personal talisman. Mugler was a pioneer in championing refillable perfume bottles. This commitment to sustainable luxury not only reduced waste, but also fostered a deep sense of loyalty and community among its wearers, who had returned to refill their cherished bottles. I've only done it twice, but there was a point right after high school, I had a bottle of Alien and I've had it refilled at the counters once or twice. So I love that. But Alien successfully captured the zeitgeist of its time and has maintained a cult following. It's a prime example of a fragrance that, through its bold identity and powerful message, transcended being a mere commodity to become a timeless icon. I can't express how iconic Alien became. I think we can understand how successful it was by looking at how many variants of Alien there are.
That is one of the things that I did to kind of prepare for this episode was like look at all the different versions of Alien.
There's 12 of them.
There's a lot.
A lot. There's like variants like Alien Goddess, which I have. I don't love it as much as Alien. There's like Alien Hypersense, Alien Fusion, and all of these are like basically the classic formula, but then they'll heighten certain notes or take away certain notes, add other notes. And so there's one that's like a little bit more leathery. There's one that has more green notes. There's one that is less jasmine-y. So, but the formula itself is iconic.
Also, Alien is kind of the closest thing that we have to a Soliflor in modern kind of the world of perfumery, because it is almost entirely jasmine. There's a little bit of zhuzh, as my Jewish ancestors would say, but it is almost completely jasmine. And that's why I recommend it to customers who come in my booth, because they'll be like, I just want to wear jasmine. I'm like, okay, go to Sephora, get yourself some Alien, and you'll be super stoked about it. But I don't do a Soliflor, but you can definitely find it.
At one point, Angel and Alien together, this is after Alien has been out for a few years, together they accounted for approximately 280 million in annual sales at a certain point in time. While this figure has been widely cited, it should be noted that Muglaire's fragrance division was acquired by L'Oreal in 2019. So crazy. L'Oreal.
They're all getting bought. Everything's
getting bought up. Yep. Our lovely Manfred Thierry Mugler, and he adopted wanting to go by Manfred, like before he passed. He passed away in 2022 at the age of 73 from natural causes. But a few years after L'Oreal had bought the Mugler fragrance and all of that, and after he retired, he wanted to go by Manfred because he wanted distance, kind of like how Prince became the artist formerly known as Prince, because there was like legal stuff with his name. He just wanted to go by Manfred Mugler. So he passed away from natural causes at the age of 73, but his impact endures through the house he founded, which continues under the creative director, Casey Caldwalder, and through his iconic fragrance lines, which he no longer, unfortunately, has anything to do with. But if they follow his template, hopefully the noses to come will keep making iconic sense.
And created a badass foundation for anything that comes after.
Yes, 100%. And I don't know if you saw it, but I did. There was a posthumous collection that was out that was touring different museums of Mugler.
I remember you going to that and posting about it and like trying to dress in your Mugler best. And it was at MoMA or the Met?
I saw it at the Brooklyn Museum. So it was Thierry Mugler Courtesim. I don't know. French. The exhibition was not a collection of unreleased work, but rather a curated look back at Mugler's career. It showcased his signature work characterized by futuristic architectural silhouettes, incorporated elements from science fiction, nature, and fetish wear. My favorite thing about the show, and I don't know if it's still going, but my favorite part of it was the perfume room. It showed all of the fragrances that he had a part in, and they had like little things that you could put your nose to smell them.
That is cool.
So cool. Yeah, that's what I got on Mugler. Your job is not easy. Like
your job is not easy.
I had to find workarounds to like figure out like, okay, I can't afford this book on his life because of course it's like a coffee table book that's like $300. So it's like, okay.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
Find a workaround and like try to get a PDF and try to like find interviews. Yeah, it's got the research down pat though.
Yeah, some of it's easier than others. And I'm reading a whole ass book for next week's episode. Ooh. So that's going to be fun too. But I love my side. It's because I love like the business. I think like that's part of the reason why I'm getting the MBA is I like love the business decisions. I like love figuring out how they like started it and like all of that kind of thing. And I know you love ingredients.
I love perfume ingredients. That's it. I love the science.
Yeah, I like I'm okay with the science part, but I'm like more fascinated in like how they like come up with these ideas, where this creativity comes from, how it plays into these like kind of larger narratives. I think like that's really fun. But yeah, so that's our switcheroo episode, guys. And neither of us likes doing the other person's role. So
that was interesting. Good. Yeah. Let's not do it again.
Yeah, well, I mean, we might be doing it again soon, but
shit.
Yeah. But yeah, next week we're going to go back to regular roles.
Regular roles. Here we go. But thank you for listening. If you'd like to support us, you can do so by checking out the show notes, buying from both of our fragrance houses.
We're trying to create our own icons.
Our indie brand perfume.
Our indie brands, mine in my basement and yours in your spare room.
Yep.
Basically, that's how we run this bitch. All right, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Sillage and Sorcery was produced by B. Sampson and Melissa Siff, your daughter. It was written by B. Sampson and Melissa Siff, your daughter. Research was conducted by Melissa Siff, your daughter, and B. Sampson. Our logo was designed by B. Sampson, and it was edited but quickly, because I'm going to New Orleans in less than 24 hours, by Melissa Siff, your daughter. You could check us out at www.sillageandsorcery.com if you would like links to our brands, links to our merch, alternative links. So if you want to watch us on YouTube instead of on Spotify, you can also pick up a sweet, sweet blanket because it is cozy season and we all need more blankets. Thank you so much for listening. I love you and we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Okay. I got this fucking asshole with this goddamn dirt bike. I swear to God.
There was like a little cat hair.
I just saw that. I thought it was a ghost.
No. both absolutely counter. Oh, good. We're starting out on a banger note.